down.
Get it up, David!
You cool on it?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I think everyone's asking if people can sit down, then more people at the back can see. Thank you. I've been involved in organising this event because thanks to people like David and Alex's work, I've been aware of the Bilderberg meetings for a while, and I went to Channel 4 once during Bilderberg, this is a few years ago, and I said, why aren't you covering the Bilderberg meeting? And the news anchor, who I won't name, said, oh, you're not one of those, are you? We're all one of those, and we know what's going on in there, and it's thanks to people like David's work. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but I just want to say thank you so much for being here. By the way, the police thought that there'd be about 300 of us. And credit to you for coming out, taking the time out and making your voice heard. It means so much, and I'm glad it's been worthwhile. So I think we're going to give an enormous round of applause for Mr. David Icke.
Thank you. And the people gathered to say, enough! You know, this is a historic weekend. This is an historic moment in the history of uncovering the evil and treachery and conspiracy that has directed and misdirected the lives of humanity for thousands of years. And there's a spirit looking down upon us at the moment, and he's got a big smiling face and he's got a big hat on. And until very recently, we used to know him as Jim Tucker. And Jim Tucker, decades ago, was on the case when no one had virtually heard of the Bilderberg group, let alone what it connects to. And I remember in 1995, long time ago now, that I went to my first Bilderberg location. It was in Switzerland, a place called Bergenstock. And Jim did a round-robin email to not too many people in those days saying the Bilderberg meeting this year is in Bergenstock, Switzerland. Story of my life since my head blew off in 1990. A few weeks earlier, I'd arranged to go and meet and stay with some friends in Switzerland, about 2 hours away. So I went down on the first day. It was a big hotel, the three of them, the Park, the Palace and the Grand. It's like something out of James Bond. And there were the guys with the name tags on and all that stuff, putting the fences up. There was virtually no one there. In terms of protest, no one. Jim must have been around somewhere, but I didn't see him. I then, during the actual event itself, when it started, went back. And this time you couldn't even get onto the mountain, never mind close to the hotels. Right in the far distance, you could not see where they were meeting. That's what happened in those days. Well, symbolism is very, very powerful because it visually gives you a fix on where we are. And Bilderberg and everything that it stands for is no longer at the top of the mountain where we cannot see it. We are in its frickin' grounds. And it ain't seen nothing yet. Whoa! I think the best thing that you can do to understand the world and to understand yourself is to realize it ain't you that's mad, it's the world we live in, and it's the people who run it. That's when the penny drops. Because what we've got is a situation where insanity has become normal. And this is how it happens. You're born into a madhouse, but you're told it's sane. You grow up in a madhouse. There's nothing that you ever see that isn't in the madhouse, and so to you madness is normal. And when someone comes along and says, this ain't normal, this is madness, they say, you're bloody mad. And you know, the mainstream media, you know, bless their cotton socks, are going to have to come to terms very soon with a simple fact, that the person they abused and ridiculed for nearly a quarter of a century was the one who was sane, and the world they believe in is what is insane. Once we realize that dynamic, the world starts to make sense. The world is upside down, and it's full of evil and slaughter and injustice for a simple reason. We, in our sleep up to this point, have allowed evil people to take control of our world. And it's stayed in control through secrecy and by keeping us in ignorance. But suddenly, the ignorance is dispersing. And what's left, is the clarity of the situation we face. We live in a world that's upside down. We live in a world that is mad while masquerading as sanity. And I'll give you an example. It's a very topical one. We're sitting here, right? Or I'm standing. Of the inversion of this world. Sitting here are thousands of loving, caring people who want peace and justice and fairness in the world. Over there is a hotel full of war criminals, parasites, right? Etc. Bankers, need I say more? I think I pronounced it correctly. And the police are protecting them from us. Police, you should be protecting us from them. What are you doing? But isn't it funny that so often there are some great policemen, there will be some great policemen around here and some not very nice ones. This is the world we live in. What are you doing? Shall I do a dance to keep it going? Yeah.
Okay. Dance, dance, dance!
And
dance!
So we have a situation where we have police that are very, genuine, although they're being sifted out more and more, and we have police that are not very nice. But what's the point I'm making here is, the police are not from the elite 1%. The police are from the people, and yet they gravitate to protect the elite 1%. This is crazy. Police, join us. We are you, you are us.
Oh, Lordy Lord.
All right, I'll give you another fantastic inversion. Bombing cities of civilians to protect them from violence. And there's the mainstream, but oh no, it is the Arab Spring, they're fighting for their freedom. I'll tell you what the Arab Spring is in one single sentence. People with brown faces being played off against people with brown faces so that people with white faces can steal their land. That's what it's about. And we have an inversion in the media so much that we actually have a newspaper in this country that is owned by a Russian oligarch and a former employee of the KGB, and it calls itself The Independent.
Boo!
The world is crazy and upside down. Most crazy. The characters in there who are dictating our world day after day, year after year. Look at them! Kissinger!
Boo!
Kissinger! What did he say? I don't know, mate. I've got a clue. I've never understood the word the bloody man said. And there's Rockefeller and all these people have been on. And then there's Mandelson. Mandelson. For people watching who are not from this country, Peter Lord Mandelson was the puppeteer of Tony Blair, known as the Prince of Darkness, not without bloody reason. He'll be in there tonight at dinner, Mandelson, rushing to finish his soup before it clots. You know, have you seen Mandelson? I can't work him out. I've never seen anyone with his nose so far in the air who didn't fall over. He walks around as if he's got a putrid smell under his nose all the time. And of course he has, himself. Oh, Ronaldo, there's a big pong in here. Yes, you, darling. Because you know, corruption, conspiracy and sleaze, Peter, does tend to stink to high heaven.
Way!
And I've looked at the physics of Peter Mandelson, and I can only work out this. He has got to have some kind of counterweight connected to his dick to keep him from falling over. He has got to. That's what it is. But look at him! Lord Mandelson is in that hotel helping to dictate our lives. Do you know something? It's not that the tail is wagging the dog. It's not that the tail's wagging the elephant. The tail's wagging the planet in terms of the number of people who are doing it and the number of people having it done to them. And this is a great moment of enough, enough, enough. And I just want to put this thing into context, not least for the mainstream media, because what they do is they treat everything as a dot. If you treat everything as a dot, you don't see the picture. So let's put some dots together. First of all, the Bilderberg group is not the conspiracy. It is a strand in the conspiracy. What we're looking at, dictating our lives and pushing us on into this Orwellian nightmare that they have planned, forget it, is that they have a spider and a web structure. The spider in the center of the web is the inner sanctum that no one ever sees, and they dictate, there's very few of them, they dictate through the spider's web. Now each strand in the web is like a secret society, a corporation. It's an organization of some kind. And immediately around the spider are all the real exclusive ones, some of which don't even have names, because if it doesn't have a name it's much more difficult to pin it down. And it comes out, and it's still in the hidden. And you come through the upper levels of the Jesuits and Opus Dei, and the real upper levels of the Freemasons and the Knights Templar, and all these people, and you're coming out, and you're coming out in the hidden. And then there's a point, a cusp, where the hidden comes into the scene, and the Bilderberg group stands at that point. Before all this work and toil to expose it, it was much more in the hidden. But we pulled it out, and it's at this cusp where it starts from this way out to the edge of the web. It's now starting to dictate and to connect with organizations we know, governments, government departments, corporations, banking systems, and what have you. And its job is to take the spider's diktats and turn them into policy playing out through governments and other organizations represented in there. That's its job. And to understand the world, we need to understand two things. One, where do they want to take us? And two, how do they want to take us there? Or how are they taking us there? If we know those three things, we become immediately streetwise on a level never close to before. And where they want to take us is into a world fascist, communist, same thing, different name, world fascist, communist dictatorship, which would make Orwell wince. And it would be based on an enormous centralization of power. This starts to answer so many things about the world. When you are a tiny few at the core and you want to control the many, you have to centralize decision making. The more diversified it is, the less control any central point is going to have over those decisions. So what we've seen is an incessant centralization of power in all areas of our lives, and after not very long and quite a way back now, it even got a name: globalization. Globalization is the centralization of power in every area of our lives. There's a man who actually has been given the title the father of globalization. Good. His name is Peter Sutherland, and he's in there now. Peter Sutherland was the first head of the World Trade Organization, which was designed and set up by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds to impose massive fines that force countries to open themselves to the merciless world market which they control. That's what globalization's about. We talk about free trade. Free trade? Oh, you must like free trade. It's free. Well, it's not. I'll tell you what free trade is. It's making your products for a few cents on the dollar for people in slum conditions, and then you take them across to the richer countries and you sell them for as much as you get. What free trade is freedom to exploit at both ends of the process.
Where's your shirt from, mate?
That's what Peter Sutherland has been involved in for decades. Also involved in Goldman Sachs now, stands back in amazement. And so we've had this incessant centralization of power for a simple reason, and it's got faster for this reason. The more you centralize power, the more power you have to centralize quicker, and so the whole thing goes faster and faster and faster. And so with the European Union, once we crossed the Rubicon of the Lisbon Treaty, they had assembled enough centralized power within the bureaucracy of the EU to push it on faster and faster and faster, as they have since. So the idea is the constant centralization of power to this end. They want a world government which would dictate all global policy that meant anything. They would have a world central bank dictating all finance globally. They would have a single electronic currency that would have no cash, for which there are massive implications for freedom. Look at all the stuff now with the technology. You're seeing it. I was writing about this 20 years ago that it was coming. All these smartphones and stuff. Oh, you don't need to go in the bank anymore. Do it online. Oh, do it from your phone. They're creating the cashless society based on a single electronic currency. And the cashless society means this. If you go into a store or a shop now and you hand over electronic money, a credit card, and the system says no, won't accept it, at least for now, though it's going out of fashion so fast, you can pay cash. Once cash is gone, that's the idea, then when that computer says no to your electronic money, your microchip as they ideally want, then it's deciding if you can or cannot purchase. It's about control. That's what it's about. And you see, the euro was never meant to work. Because they want this single currency, they have to do it in steps. It means that they had all those European currencies, the guilder, the lira, the mark and all the rest of them. Now, they had to get rid of them on the road to a single global electronic currency. So in comes the euro, and it wiped them all away. Massive step forward to that goal I've been writing about all these years. Now, all they need to do is destroy the euro and the world currency in general, and they'll say, well, what we have to do is we have to have a world currency to sort out this problem. Alongside the world government and world central bank and single currency, they want a world army to impose the will of the world government. Now, we already have a world government de facto. It goes under names like G8 and G20 and all this stuff. UN Security Council. We also have a de facto world army, and it's called NATO, which imposes the will of these people. Send the boys in. So we're seeing it unfold before our eyes, and still the mainstream media can't see it because it can only see dots and not pictures. And there's two techniques that are necessary to understand. Many people will be aware of these here, but I'll go through them for the mainstream media. Because that's the thing, you see. This is the thing. This is what the mainstream media do not understand in their bewilderment at what's happening, is vast numbers of people are now far more informed about the world than they are. This is the point. The first technique I gave the name to a long time ago now, problem, reaction, solution. Real simple. You want to change the world in a way that if you did it openly, there would be a massive response against it. So you don't do it openly. You first of all create a problem which you blame someone else for. 9/11 and all that stuff, a banking crash, a government crash, and you blame it on someone or something else. You then, here we go again, to a unquestioning mainstream media, you pass on your version of that problem to the public, and you're looking at stage 2 for a reaction of fear, of anxiety, of do something, something must be done. And then you, who've covertly created that problem, then offer the solution to the problems you've created. And those solutions are changes in society that advance the agenda towards this structure I'm talking about, that would never have happened without the manipulated problem. There's even a version, Tony Blair's good at these. Tony Blair. Yeah.
Tony Blair!
If there's ever a half-truth in a Blair speech, it's a typing error. Okay? But it's an add-on to that technique, an offshoot, which I call no problem reaction solution. This is when you don't need a real problem to justify the solution, you just invent one. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Dead simple. Don't need a problem. Invent it. And alongside problem reaction solution, its partner. almost always hunts together what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. Again, dead simple, and my goodness me, that brings us back to this organisation here. You start at A, as they did, and you know you're going to Z. You know where the agenda's leading. But if you go there too quickly, the changes in society are such that people look up and go, what's going on? What's happening? And so you do it in steps as big as you can get away with, but not so big that you alert too many people. And so what we've seen in the most classic example, which brings us to this organisation, so the totalitarian tiptoe is the European Union. We have a European Union centralised bureaucratic dictatorship thanks to the Bilderberg group and its manipulation over decades. The Bilderberg group was created in part by a man called Joseph Rettinger. It just so happens that Joseph Rettinger was one of the major instigators of the European Union. And he worked in creating the initial common market with a man called Jean Monnet, who is still today called the father of Europe, the father of the European project.
And the father of impressionism.
I have a quote here from a letter by Monnet one day after I was born. April the 30th, 1952, right at the start of the European project, orchestrated in so great a part through this. And this is what Monnet said in 1952. Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. This is not an accident. This is not, oh, we better have a Maastricht Treaty. Shall we have a Maastricht Treaty? It's all projected forward. And we have now reached the point in Europe where something like 70-odd% of the laws that are introduced into this country start out in the bureaucracy in Brussels. That's how far we have gone. And we've got a situation, the guy in there called Viscount Etienne d'Avignon, right? They love their titles, these people. You know, I reckon Mandelson must have had an orgasm for a month when he was made a lord, you know. Ronaldo, I'm a lord. You're a prat. Hey! I can't take that guy seriously. And I've got to say, a non-stop orgasm by Mandelson. I just got a message to my visual senses. Would you please remove the image I now have in my mind, because it's bloody horrible, right? Anyway, the d'Avignon guy said a few